Good afternoon. My name
Hello.
is Dawn,
And I'm Elise.
and we are Small Print,
Yes.
the Small Print podcast.
We are debuting our new name today. Yeah, so we're the Small Print Podcast.
and we will be podcasting new popular YA releases. So we'll podcast every other Monday for a book that's coming out the following Tuesday. So I know in our last podcast we said we were going to do Daughters Unto Devils, but we're going to do that like right at the end. But then we realized that Six of Crows comes out tomorrow, so we wanted to do Six of Crows, and then we will mention Daughters Unto Devils afterward. What was what we called it? I forgot.
Don't remember.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
We had a special name.
Okay, so do you want me to do a brief?
I can do it. I've got it right here. All right, so this is the description of Six of Crows, if you are not already familiar with it. Six of Crows takes place in the same Grisha universe that her previous series, Shadow and Bone, did. And this place is called Ketterdam, and it is a alternate Netherlands. So it's the international bustling hub of trade where anything can be had for the right price. And no one knows better than criminal prodigy Kaz Brecker. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he cannot pull it off alone. He's going to need Matthias, a convict with a thirst for revenge, Jesper, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, Wylan, a runaway with a privileged past, Inej, a spy known as the Wraith, Nina, who's a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, and of course himself. He's the thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. So it's a group of 6 dangerous outcasts and 1 impossible heist. And the only thing that stands between the world and destruction is if they don't kill each other first. So that is the brief overview of Six of Crows.
Okay, and this is Leigh Bardugo's second series. I think Shadow and Bone was her debut. This is her second. And so our format is basically we'll talk about what we didn't like, what we did like, and we'll give it a rating. And then this is a spoiler-free version, and then immediately after we'll do a spoiler edition. So let's talk about what we did not like.
I honestly do not think I didn't like anything about this book. I sat here trying to think and think and think, and I'm like, I liked it all.
Yeah. I only had one minor dislike, and Kaz, he's only 17, but he seems to be a step ahead of everyone else, and he pulls off some pretty magnificent feats. But then I figured, well, he's been through a lot since he was very young. He's been living in the slums since he was very young. He's been on his own since I don't remember how old he was.
I think like 7.
Yeah. So he learned from the streets. So, and I mean, in a different book, I might have a problem with that. But in this book, because it was so great, I could forgive that. So
yeah, she pulled that off really well.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add. I couldn't think of anything that I didn't like.
Yeah, that was really it, and it was minor.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt I had to mention something. All right, well, that was quick.
Yeah.
So let's go to the likes. Let's go to the likes.
I initially picked up this book with apprehension because I did not like. Okay, I didn't hate Shadow and Bone, the series, but I didn't finish it. I think I gave up on Siege and Storm like halfway through. I was just bored. The world was no longer exciting to me. The characters drove me nuts. The only person I ended up liking from that series was the Darkling, and he really wasn't in Siege and Storm very much, so I think that's why I kind of dropped off the series. But then I saw that this book was compared to Ocean's 11, and at first I was like, oh god, here we go with the asinine comparisons. It's like Game of Thrones meets Cinderella. No. Like, not that book particularly, but why do they have to do that? I feel like it just sets you up for expectation failure. But then when I started reading the book, the characters and their relationship to each other, notice I said to and not with, they're just so compelling. And I love that Leigh Bardugo writes these characters that seem so real, and she really just lets them kind of evolve naturally, and it just feels very sincere and genuine. And I love a good like character-driven plot, and I think you have best of both worlds with this one. Like, the characters are fantastic, you love them all, yet they drive you nuts because they're like real they're almost like real people, I felt. And then she's got an amazing plot with this book as well, with the heist and all of the intrigue, and I just felt like you could never really guess what was coming next, even with the ending.
Yeah.
Like, I was a little bit worried when I was reading, like, oh god, this book is going to go one of two ways. They're either going to be successful in the heist or they're not. And that is not necessarily what happens. I was like, wow, blew my mind.
So yeah, I agree. It's completely character driven, and there are 5 different POVs, even though there are 6 characters. Wyland is missing for a reason. I'm pretty sure she has her reasons. 460 pages, but she really takes her time to do a lot of character development, and therefore it's not necessarily slow, but these are 5 new characters. You have to learn who they are, and they're all wonderful characters. Kaz, and I say Inez, it's probably Inez. I think it's however you pronounce Inez, Inez.
Yeah.
Those 2 are my favorite.
Yeah.
So yeah, the characters, that's like the top of the list for me. It was it's character driven, so you can't help but to notice all the characters. So that's one of the major things I liked about this book.
And as she, when you're plopped into the novel, you don't really get the backstory until, I would say, like halfway through the book. Anyone's. Yeah. I mean, she kind of builds it slowly. You get piece by piece of each person's history, but I mean, think of Kaz. When he finally revealed his past, you were like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Now everything makes sense. And same thing with Inej. I also agree, Kaz and Inej are my favorite characters. They really, I mean, everyone drives the plot equally, and I think that the third person perspective really helped that. Like, you didn't feel like you were just inside of one person's head for most of the novel. So they're all equal, but I feel like I don't know, I just resonated with their characters and sort of their story most. I liked that this book was darker and grittier than the Shadow and Bone series. Like, she really just delves into this gang underworld of Ketterdam. And I thought that was awesome. Just the territorial disputes and the rules of the street and all this kind of... It was
prostitution and
just everything.
Indentured
drugs,
servants,
and slavery, basically.
Homeless children, and it's not a fun city to live in.
Not at all. So you can understand the sort of edge that these characters come to the story with.
But at the same time, even though it's got some pretty serious stuff, it's not inappropriate for a 12-year-old. It's implied that she does gotta say they're prostitutes, but I mean, 12-year-olds know what prostitutes are. It's nothing new. But I wouldn't hesitate to give it to a younger person. I also enjoyed you kind of mentioned this, her world building with the Ketterdam. And if you read Shadow and Bone, the map in this book is exactly the same. So all those cities that you really didn't know about from Shadow and Bone, they're appearing now. So the Shuhan and the Navizem, Kirch, and even Ketterdam doesn't really mention in Shadow and Bone. So she is developing this world even more. And you don't have to have read Shadow and Bone to understand anything. She does mention Alina briefly, and that's one thing I wasn't
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, she's Saint Alina. They call her Saint Alina. So this takes place years after.
I saw on Goodreads that it was 2 years.
Only 2?
Only 2.
Well, I guess at the end of Shadow and Bone, she's just like, screw this noise. I'm sorry, that was kind of a spoiler, but
not for this book.
Yeah, I thought it was years later, but maybe not. No,
someone
maybe
asked, not. Yeah, someone asked on the Goodreads. If you go to the Goodreads profile for Six of Crows, there's a, how you can ask the author a question. That's what it says. So weird.
Yeah, but she's mentioned like once or twice.
Okay.
So you don't have to have read Shadow and Bone to get into this book, which is great. You mentioned the themes, which I also liked, and I think the themes are relevant today. It's, how did I say it? It's the whole witch versus non-witch, or Grisha versus non-Grisha. Matthias, he is basically born and bred to hate the Grisha, yet a Grisha saves his life. So now he's conflicted. Have I been taught the wrong things my whole life? Or, which is an internal struggle that a lot of people are faced with now. And so that's a quite relevant theme.
especially to teens, since this is technically a YA book, as like teens are just starting to come to terms with what they believe, who are they, comparing themselves with what they've been raised to think and feel and believe, which,
And we hear those conversations in
all
this
the time.
room a lot. It's like, my mom says that, we'll do the LGBTQ example, which comes up a lot here, that it's not right yet, my friends are woo-woo. And we also had another girl who came in, she goes to a Catholic school, and she's like, oh, my friends are atheists now, but they go to a Catholic school, so they're kind of questioning Catholicism a little bit. So I think that this, like you said, it's relevant to their lives right now.
Yeah. And I think this like her other theme is a little bit more innocent, if you will, just love and friendship. I felt really was throughout really the entire throughout the entire novel. And even if they're not, like, they recognize that they need each other to get through their mission, through their purpose. And I think that's just very true to obviously life in general. Okay, spoilers.
I have one more thing that I like. Okay. This book has a lot of diverse characters. We're never quite sure what they look like. I think Inej is described as caramel, but I assume she's probably Hispanic descent. Jesper, I'm assuming, is Black. He's dark coffee colored or something. Nina, well, the other ones are Anglo, I would assume.
Definitely Matthias. Yeah, since he comes from Fjerda, which is like Norway, Sweden.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so there are very diverse characters in the book, but it's not a main focus of the book. So it's just happens to be who they are in this town or this world. It is not, oh, you're brown, so blah blah blah. It's just, and I appreciate that it's not.
She didn't make it a thing.
The romance, should we do that in the...
Yes.
Okay, so we'll say that.
Okay,
so we are going to rate the book now. I read this book about a month ago, and at that point, at the top of my favorite book of the year was Bone Gap. And the second I closed this book, it shot right up to the top. I was like, this is the best book I've read this year, and I don't think anything is going to top it. It's only October. I don't see anything topping this book. This book was great.
Yeah, this was my my top book of 2015. I mean, there's another close contender, but this was better. So yeah,
and that was your top since like January.
Yes, before I read this book, that previous book, which will stay on nameless,
oh god,
was my favorite book. I mean, what should I say it? I don't know.
I don't know. Is it a top secret?
No, I just don't want to be like, oh god, my book got bumped,
Oh well, I already did. So.
Well, okay. The previous book was An Ember in the Ashes. If you haven't read that, it's fantastic, and that was my top pick. And then I read this one, and it got bumped down. Yeah. Not because it's any worse, it's just different, and this one just did so much more for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so
our rating is...
Yes! 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 Yes!
Oh, those
yes! 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 Yes!
A little Dwight Schrute for your Monday afternoon.
Okay, so, all right, so before we start the spoiler version, we just want to mention that we are going to do our next podcast next week on, what's the date?
The 6th of October.
Is it the 6th or the 5th?
The 6th. Oh, I'm sorry, the 5th.
October 5th, and we are going to podcast...
A Madness So Discreet.
A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis. That comes out on the 6th, and so we will podcast that. And we also have a challenge happening. Elise and I, we work together, and so we just kind of decided to do some activities and stuff together since we are both bloggers. And we have a YA fantasy challenge, and it's basically fantasy football with books. So if you're kind of familiar with fantasy football, you just pick a bunch of books that you like, and you get points based on where they land on certain bestseller lists and certain book review publications. And so that will be starting soon. If you go to either bangbangbookblog.com or roulettereader.wordpress.com and look for challenges, you will find it there, and we hope you sign up. So we are going to start the spoiler edition of Six of Crows in 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay.
Bam.
So I love Cass
Romance.
and Inej, and
Yes.
I love that there really was no physical. It
No.
was all.
She is a tease. By she, I mean Leigh. Because
I was gonna say,
oh
really?
my god.
Yeah.
You want so much more from them in terms of like that sort of
But
connection.
you appreciate the
Yes,
courtship
exactly
so much. You're like, oh, this is so refreshing that they're not banging
right
after.
Nobody.
It's
none
love.
of yeah. There. I personally think there are 3 couples in this book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that. Since this is a spoiler, we can say those
Yeah.
things, right? Okay. So obviously Kaz and Inej are the first ones, and theirs is this like dark, shouldn't happen but is happening romance that I just absolutely love because they're both so flawed, and like Kaz is scared. He seems to be afraid of like how much he knows he needs her. Like when she almost dies, he almost like loses it.
Well, you didn't read Infernal Devices, but for those of you who did, he very much reminds me of Will Herondale because he loves Tess, but he knows he has the secret and he doesn't want to love her because of heartbreak. And so he's kind of cold to her. Mm-hmm. And you're like, why is he doing this to her? And then you learn his story and you're like, okay, that makes sense, but it still doesn't lessen your shipping of them. So Kaz is very much like Will Herondale.
Absolutely. And it like Inej has her own damaged past. Like her only experience with like intimacy is just not great. I mean, she was basically forced into prostitution, stolen from her homeland. I mean, that doesn't make you exactly want to rush into a relationship or anything. And then there's Nina and Matthias, who came together under very trying circumstances, again, as Dawn was mentioning. Matthias was raised to believe that they are literally the devil. They make it their life's goal to hunt them down and kill them. So when he's confronted by this, by Nina, who just displays characteristics that are completely opposite of what he's been raised to believe that they are, he can't handle it. I mean, he starts to completely question his worldview. So he's a very, like, I can see how his character could have been done so wrong because he would have seemed like a waffling character, like, oh, I don't know who I am. But it didn't come across like that at all. But I didn't quite, like, I want them to be together, but they were not my favorite couple.
No.
And then there's Jesper and Wylan.
Yeah, and that's very, very subtle.
Yeah.
But it's obvious.
You could miss it easily if you're not, I don't know, you're just not paying attention.
You really cannot be paying attention if you miss.
Yeah, and it's really implied. So what I mean by that is it's not outright stated, and neither of the characters, I think, are.
I don't think they've even understood.
Yeah, no, they have not. And I'm not even sure how far, to what extent they believe or they see themselves as a couple. Not at all, but like Jesper, I think, is what I'm more talking about. I don't think he is understanding of his own feelings yet. Wylan, I think, might be. And at first I thought that was the reason that he was kicked out of his dad's house. But it wasn't. Right? It was for another reason, right? His dad was, he's like dyslexic or something.
I don't remember.
Yeah, because he writes him letters because he knows he can't read. And it's like a slap in the face every time he gets a letter from his dad.
Oh,
remember?
Okay. Yeah. At the end, especially.
Yeah. So Wylan was an interesting character. He kind of comes into the story later in the book. And is not really ever treated as part of the gang. But they literally would not have been able to even go on the heist without his presence, so I kind of found that interesting. Okay, what other spoilers?
Oh, well, I guess the whole heist.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In itself. And Kaz, his story and how come he didn't get what's-his-face when he had the chance.
I cannot remember his name. I was trying to...
I'm not going to know it.
So Kaz has this vendetta against one of the, I guess, like, slumlords. I cannot remember his name. Neither of us can. We apologize for that. We had a copy, and then we gave it to one of our teens who has yet to return it.
Oh, no, she gave it back to me. I gave it to Alyssa.
Oh, great. Oh, that one. Okay, gotcha. Never mind then. Either way, it is not in hand. He has this vendetta against a slumlord because of what this man did to his brother and therefore his family. And so it is basically everything he does is to take this man down. And when they go to Fjorda to get this... is it literally money that they're getting?
I
Or
thought
what
they
are
were trying to get
they're
the man.
stealing- yeah,
the
they're-
man has the
They're
antidote.
trying to basically kidnap someone who is creating a drug that makes the Grisha powers amplified, so much so that it's like
It's killing.
it's equivalent to I guess like a country owning nuclear weapons. Like it could cause mass destruction. So if they do this, they're guaranteed like $30 million or
Oh
something.
yeah, they get
Yeah.
money.
They get tons of money, and when he's in Fjorda doing the heist, he sees this man that he's got this vendetta against, and he ends up letting him live, which you're like, wait, what? But then it ends up like coming full circle in that if he would have killed him, they would not have even gotten out of Fjorda. So it's like the ending that she gave us was totally out of left field in a really good way, because they weren't necessarily successful, but they weren't unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it completely sets it up for an amazing book too. So I was very pleasantly surprised by the way that book ended.
There's a quote, and I'm not gonna remember the quote, and I'm angry because I don't have my book in front of me. But and I'm kind of like going back to Inez and Kaz.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
As she says something to him at the very end, something about if you can't have me all or something. It was great. But anyway, sorry, I had to say that.
What?
I don't remember what the quote was. I love quotes, and I cannot remember what she said to him at the end.
Oh, that sucks. Is anything typing?
No. So Inez gets kidnapped, and that was a shocker.
Yeah, I
I was
was.
like, oh no. He was
Yeah.
going to tell her he loves her, I think. I don't remember.
Kind of, yeah. He was gonna like go back and be like, I do need you, so let's do this thing.
Yeah. Oh, Inez.
And you know she's gonna start the next book where it's like months have passed and like the adrenaline from the heist has now faded away and they've come back to their senses, and it's like, crap, they're gonna have to start their relationship all over again. I'm waiting for that to happen, because she can't give it to us all in the first couple chapters.
I don't even know how many books are in this series either.
Does it say?
Please let there only be 3 and not 7.
So far there's only 2.
Like this trend that people have. She writes really quickly though.
Yeah, she does.
She's already putting in her first proofs.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Okay.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.